It is preparing to stream the webinar, and I
Okay.
think we're just about there. So I will say the thing when I see. Oh, here we go.
Okay.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. It is Angie Atkinson, and I'm here with the lovely and talented Dana Morningstar. Dana, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Always happy to have you. And on these live streams, we do these once a week here on this channel, and then next week we'll be on Dana's channel, alternating channels, usually around 12:30 ish Central Time, 1:30 ish Eastern. Is it?
Yes. Hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Anyway, so if you are interested in joining us for these streams every week, you can make sure to. Sorry, I'm hearing myself talking. You can make sure to subscribe to this channel and to Dana's channel, which is Thrive After Abuse, right here on YouTube, and hit the bell notification on each. You may also text AngieLive, all one word, to 33222, or Dana Live, well, and or Dana Live, all one word, to 22999.
Yep.
Okay. And then we will text you when we go live together and or separately. If you have any questions, let us know. Otherwise, we're just going to jump right in. Hello and
Okay.
welcome. All right.
Yes.
So, Dana, we were talking before the stream, Dana and I asked a question recently on my community tab. What do you guys want to know? And don't worry, I'm still making videos about that. But we thought one of these questions really stuck out. And several people thumbs up, thumbs upped this question. So we thought we'd start with this. Table Lamp wanted to know how to stop isolating yourself and trust people again without accidentally inviting more toxic garbage into your life.
Hmm.
So let's talk about it. Dana, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think really learning to trust again, in large part, comes from learning how to keep yourself safe. And one of the kind of biggest shifts in all of this is yes, this person who hurt you, they might have been a narcissist or a sociopath or whatnot. And I know that can kind of seem like, oh, it's a fluke, like getting hit by lightning. and and hopefully it is, but at the same time, if they've been able to kind of weasel their way into your life and fly under your radar, then odds are there's been some damage done in terms of your boundaries and um, the ability to trust your perceptions of reality, these kinds of things. So really getting grounded within yourself, and um, and your boundaries will keep you safe. So it's not so much about avoiding ever getting tangled up with a person like this again. And I know a lot of people, myself included, especially at first, put a lot of pressure on ourselves to just never get tangled up with a narcissist again. And the reality is they all are different, and so they're going to come across differently. And it's not so much about avoiding problematic people. I mean, that would be great if it was so easy, but it's more about once that behavior surfaces, to know how to effectively respond to it and take protective action, whatever that might be.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah, what are your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I 100% agree with everything that you said. I do. I think it's all about boundaries and learning to set them. And, you know, without losing who you are, you definitely, I mean, unless you just become a complete hermit and shut yourself off to the world, which some of us do, it,
Mhm.
if you're being yourself and you're going out in the world, you're going to attract people. It's just normal human stuff. But also, I don't know. I find a lot of us tend to have this. We find ourselves surprised, let's say, at how often people are drawn to us, and this is probably due to the fact that we have a lot of empaths in our midst, right?
Mhm.
Um, but I think you're exactly right. You can't just expect to never run into these people or to avoid them completely. And it's exactly what you said. It's boundaries, learning how to set them. And I think deal breakers for relationships, would be the other only thing I'd really add, because when you go into any type of relationship, whether it's romantic or not, I think you need a certain amount of deal breakers, right? So, like for a romantic relationship, maybe you don't do. And when I say deal breakers, what I mean is these things, this small amount of thing, this little box of things these things don't happen, or the relationship ends immediately. And that sounds harsh, but these things are things you don't tolerate, you don't put up with, for which are basically the end of your boundaries, right? And what I mean is, So, for example, in a romantic relationship, I don't tolerate cheating. I don't tolerate physical or emotional abuse or any harm to my children to start with. Those are my deal breakers. Now, they might get a little bigger than that, but in general, those are the things that I'm not talking about. I'm walking, you know, there are similar ones for friendships and any other type of, even like a boss employee type relationship. You will have deal, if this person does XYZ, I'm out. And I think having deal breakers, or which are, so I have these boundaries, but these are the things that I might talk about and might work out with you or explain to you, but there are certain things that I just don't tolerate. And when you get to that point, and I know, Dana, you've talked about uh, even just the things that was somebody makes you feel uncomfortable, or
Mhm.
not, you know and you don't have to have anyone in your life if you don't. I mean, you don't have to allow any specific person in your life or to remain in your life, and I just think it's really important to be okay with that. For me, it was a lot of times I was allowing people in just because I was afraid that if I didn't, they wouldn't, I would be alone,
Mhm.
or I wouldn't have anyone, and maybe I was too picky, and and we do go the opposite direction. Sometimes we become overly sensitive, so it's really difficult to find that balance. And then just a minute ago, I'm trying to see who it was who said it. Somebody in chat said, and I wanted to bring it up, that their situation was, Becca, I trust far too easily. I need to learn to not do this, and I used to be the same way. Um, but I've gotten to this point now where, up to a point, I'll trust a person, but not with like my life or anything, but I'll trust a person when I meet them initially, but limited amounts, right? So things that don't, that sounds really harsh. Um, but things that aren't important, things that aren't life changing, I might trust them for. But then when I notice, okay, this person did something that I makes me feel that I can't trust them anymore, I don't necessarily go and say to them, hey person, you did something that's unacceptable to me, but I certainly take note of it and act appropriately from there, right? So,
Mhm.
for example, I once paid someone to clean my house. And this was it wasn't something that was an ongoing thing. It was just I had a thing coming up. I was in a hurry. I didn't have time. So I paid someone to come over and do it. Well, that person, I said, don't go in my bedroom or in any other bedroom. Just go in these parts of the house. And then when I arrived back to my house, the bedroom had been invaded, and there were things inside the closet of the bedroom that I didn't put there. So I felt quite upset about it. But then I learned, just don't hire that person again. you know. So it's one of those. Am I making any sense?
Mhm.
It's a it's a process is what I'm saying, and sometimes
Yeah.
we need to learn to, yeah. Anyway, what
It
are your
it is a
thoughts?
process, and getting kind of re in touch, or maybe even learning for the first time that you have the right to have boundaries. Everybody has the right, as a human being, you have
Mhm.
boundaries, and that's okay. And if something's not okay with you, then that's boundaries are a very individual thing. So they're going to vary from person to person. And we don't need people to vote on them in order to figure out, okay, is this right? Right.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it. I see so many people when they get back out in there, and again, I was there too, really doubting their perceptions of things, or um, having those feelings of discomfort come up. Like I had shared a while back, I went on a date, to a total of 2 dates, maybe it was 3. It wasn't very long, 2 or 3 dates with this guy. This was years ago.
Mhm.
And, um, I he was saying everything right. Like, on paper, everything was okay, but I just couldn't shake this very predatory, dark vibe about him, and I couldn't quite place it, and it was giving me all kinds of anxiety, and I just didn't feel safe. And I was talking to a bunch of therapist friends of mine, and was trying to figure out, is it me, is it him, and is this, I don't want to miss out on a great person. Am I afraid to love again? Is that where all of this anxiety is coming from? Or I'm afraid of commitment, or men, or relationships with potential? Like, what is it? And uh, and then somebody had said, like, you're feeling completely emotionally dysregulated around this guy,
Mhm.
and a lot of his behavior, they were pointing it out to me, it was all very boundary pushing, but it was in very subtle ways. And Um, Instead, and so somebody said, they're like, "You know what? You've been down this road before," or they said, "You've seen this movie before. You don't need to sit here and wait till it's all the way over in order to get up and leave."
Mm,
And I thought, "Oh my god, you're right." And that's
powerful.
what I had been doing before is I'm like, "Well, I need to give a person a chance, right? So I'm just gonna sit there and let my discomfort grow until they really prove to me that they're problematic, and then I'll leave."
Hmm.
Well, why? You why do that? So that was a big aha moment for me and a big shift with how I interact with other people
Absolutely, I
of
love that. And I'm wondering if you could share, and maybe one or two examples of some of the things that were his subtle boundary pushing behaviors. Is that
um, sure, absolutely.
okay?
Um, Getting very upset with me if I didn't call him as I was leaving work.
Mm,
Wanting to come over. So there was one time where there was just flat out gaslighting. We'd had plans to go. He lives in a different city, like an hour away. We had plans to go to a an art show in his city.
mhm.
And I had so we were talking, and then he says, "Oh, well, I'll be down in your area this weekend." And I was like, "What? No, we're going to this art show." And it was, and I could hear it in his voice. And it was just kind of, I could hear that smirk in his voice of, um, he was just playing with me. Like, "No, why would I have said that we're going to the art show this weekend? That doesn't make any sense."
Mm,
And that, and then there was a time, uh, shortly, there were so many things. He had said he'd painted this picture of himself as being, um, very successful, which I don't care about, but things didn't add up.
mm.
So, uh things just didn't add up with that at all. Like his clothes were way too big. It was like at one time in his life he had money, but then he didn't anymore, but he was still holding on to that
Oh,
kind of a
interesting.
thing.
Yeah.
And plus he was way overdressed. Like he showed up for a coffee date with like this long black wool coat on, cufflinks. It was like, where are you going? Do you know?
Right.
Like, it was so over the top. And then there was a time where, and this all happened within the span of like 3 weeks.
Wow.
Um, he starts telling me how much he cares about me, and then starts like fake crying. Yeah. And I,
Awkward.
it was just, and it was so unnecessary. But
Yeah.
it just was so strange. And so I finally ended it, and then he began raging at me on the phone, screaming. And then right then I was like, okay, I hands down did the right thing. Like, this is no way, never again.
No doubt. Yeah. No doubt. Wow.
Yeah.
That is a lot. Yeah. I think that's, well, good for you for catching it. You
Yeah.
know, save yourself some stress for sure. And I hope that was helpful for people who are maybe preparing to date or getting or starting to date right now, after going through what some of this. Okay, so let's address something else in the chat here. I see a couple people, Nance and what's for tea? Hello, y'all. Saying, listen, I'm kind of a hermit at this point, or I'm not attracting anyone at this point. So, and what says, look, it's fine with me. I'm not even trying to draw anyone to me right now, and I totally get that. And I think that's okay. If you are if you're fine with that, that means you're not ready yet. So enjoy it. Enjoy, like, sometimes maybe you just want to be by yourself for a while, or you feel like I've been through so much crap with people.
Mhm.
you know I need my personal space. And I think a lot of us, some people think, well, shouldn't I want to be in a relationship again? And my answer is no, not unless you want to be in a relationship again. you know.
Mhm.
And with that being said, there may come a time for what's for tea or anyone else that if you want to, you might you might change your mind and decide you're going. Right, you're going to go ahead. I'm going to go out. I'm going to date or whatever, and that's okay if you choose to do that too. But I don't want anyone to ever think, well, not dating is wrong, or I should want this, because
Mhm.
the only should there is, I think, is like you should wake up in the morning and you should eat and you should
Mhm.
shower. You know what I'm saying? Like basic stuff. But there's no basic, you know, I don't think there's any requirement for a relationship. I have one client who says, listen, she says, I think marriage is crap. She says it's an institution. It has nothing to do with life. And they tell us we're supposed to be married, but we don't have to be married, especially today, and
Mhm,
she really goes on about it, and she's never been married, and she's very doing very well and very happy. So I mean, I feel
mhm,
like if you want to be married if you're married to someone you love and someone who loves you.
mhm,
um, you know, anyway, I'm just saying the hermit thing. I mean, I think at some point you're going to want to go out and get, you know, maybe experience a little bit, maybe, hang out with friends. We always talk about the meetup.com thing. Dana mentions it quite often. And
mhm.
I love the idea. I think it's a good idea. Of course, right now with COVID, it's a little
Yeah.
iffy, but I think a lot of us are hermits right now, a little bit, right?
Mhm.
So, anyway, what are your thoughts about the hermits and
Yeah.
those who aren't? Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people that do kind of that hermiting thing, um, it's a response to pain, and
Mhm,
it's a very normal and understandable response where you
mhm,
just kind of want to be alone, especially if you're feeling kind of invalidated or re-victimized by other people, or you're just scared to get hurt again. One of the mistakes, again, that I've made and that I see a lot of other people run into as well, is it's this thinking of, "Oh, well, when someday when I heal, then I'll start living my life."
mhm.
And I will tell you, I don't even know how many years I lost to that. So kind of, I don't know if irony is the right word, but the reality of it is it's kind of once we start living our life again that it helps us to start healing.
Mm, that's really true.
It is
Mhm,
expanding your horizons, hobbies, learning how to just interact with people in ways that, to any degree that feels safe to you,
mhm,
um, building up a life that you love. What a lot of people tend to do is they kind of um, do that hermit thing, and then once they're no longer feeling suicidal or like emotionally devastated, then they think, okay, I'm ready to get back out there again, but then they jump back into dating. And
mhm.
if they are still in this place of kind of taking other people for face value, which online dating is just it's a mecca for mayhem and I mean, there's a
What a
lot of
mess.
disingenuous people out there, and you really have
Yeah.
to proceed with caution, and it can really contribute to feelings of bitterness and anger and hurt. And so that's why it is helpful to, when you are ready to get back out there, uh, to go into something where it's not so like there's not such high emotional stakes.
Mhm,
Meetup.com, groups like that, taking a class at your local community college, painting, music, whatever it might be, gardening, a foreign language, something to kind of just get you back out there. And that way you're not around people that are trying to impress you or manipulate or get something from you. Like you're kind of connecting around these like-minded things, you know, same
absolutely.
shared interests. That's the word I'm looking for.
Great advice. Yep.
Yeah.
Totally agree. And I think that's so important, especially for any of us. But I think two big points that you made there that I want to pull out. Number
Mhm,
one being that sometimes you have to start before you're fully healed. And with that being said, I would like to I would say take the time you need, but definitely, you know, start to think about that part of it without necessarily the second thing I wanted to pull out that you said, without necessarily bringing the romance into it
mhm,
immediately. I mean, take some time and uh, relearn how to exist or how to be part of a friend group or how
mhm.
to connect with people on a platonic level first and then take it from there. I think
Yeah,
that's really important.
and really reconnecting with your boundaries and understanding
Yes.
when they're being crossed. Uh, these are skills, and it just like any other skill, it just takes time and practice. And however, the more emotionally connected we are to the outcome, like with dating, the more difficult a skill this is to practice. And again, another thing I see a lot of is people um, who do find somebody that they're dating, even if it's a kind of normal, healthy, well adjusted person, but if they have all of this unprocessed trauma, and they're really not ready to date, then it's kind of between this rock and a hard place of, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so emotionally just dysregulated and all over the place. I don't want to lose this person, but it's killing me to keep moving forward in this relationship because I have all this unprocessed trauma. And so, uh, you know, um, yeah, then they're full of anxiety and crying all the time, and it's just a lot of emotional anguish. And so, um, yeah, so just keeping it small, kind of working on your training wheels with these skills, and then growing from there is huge.
100%. I agree. And do you have something in the chat for us, or I have one if you don't?
I don't yet. I'm
Okay.
scrolling through though.
I have one from Zani, and I'm hope I'm saying that right. She says, "This is me. Toxic garbage gravitates toward me when I'm out there in the dating world. It's like I'm wearing a sign that says pushover right here." I totally relate to that. And again, it's everything we just talked about. You know, keeping yourself keeping your boundaries in place, and not being afraid, as Dana mentioned earlier, not being afraid to just walk away from somebody who proves to you that they are what they are, if that's something undesirable to you, and watching for those little clues ahead of time or as you go, early in the relationship. Maybe that's a starting point. Any thoughts for Zani or
Yeah, I
Zany?
guess. Yeah, I guess, just realizing that there's all kinds of people out there, and it's not a matter of if you'll come across them, it's a matter of when.
Mm,
And so kind of emotionally preparing yourself for this and then not internalizing it, because
mm,
it's very easy to get discouraged, especially if you've had 3, 4, 10 people in a row message you on a dating app or social media or whatever, and they're just looking for sex, they're just abusive, or you know, pathological liars, or whatever it might be. Um, it can, it's easy to kind of internalize that and just be like, oh my gosh, I'm just a magnet for these people. What is so wrong with me? And the reality is, I think the vast majority of people on dating sites encounter these same people. Like they're just out there in spades. So, um, kind of realizing that, like, yeah, you're probably going to come across quite a few of them, and it's not necessarily the skill here isn't to avoid them completely, because sometimes the real good ones, they fly under the radar for a little bit. It's
mm.
just about rooting them out when they do surface, and then letting their bad behavior be a reflection of them, being like, wow, that person's a jerk, instead of internalizing it of, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me, I can't believe I attracted another jerk.
Absolutely. Yes.
So
I could not agree more. Okay. Do you have another one for
I
us, or?
do. I do.
Okay.
Here's one from Martha who says, please help. I have a problem that I'm super triggered by people with narcissistic traits. When I smell a narcissist, I attack him or her. How to not waste my time in this way? I'd be grateful for any advice.
Ooh, okay, wait.
Mhm.
So when you're aware of a narcissist, you see them, you kind of suss them out, then you have to tell them about themselves. Is that what I understand? Is that
I
what you said?
think so. She
Okay.
goes on the attack. Yeah.
Okay. So this is one of those not my monkey, not my circus kind of deals, in my opinion. And what I mean is, I have this thing. I have a rule for myself. If I'm going to talk to someone and they're not going to hear me, there's a cat fight in my
Mhm.
office right now. Sorry about that. It's not really a real cat fight. Anyway, if I have a situation where someone, you know, won't hear me. So if I speak to them and I know that they're going to either blow me off, or they're going to literally not comprehend what I'm saying, or they're going to tell me I'm full of it or whatever. I don't waste my breath. I call it the brick wall thing. I don't talk to brick walls, right?
Mhm.
And you and I both know, Dana, that anytime you go off on a narcissist, or a perceived narcissist, if they're actually a toxic person, they're just going to act like you hurt them for no reason. They're going to play narcissistic injury, if not rage, and they're not going to hear you. They're just going to use it against you in some way. So for me, um, it's about it's not that I want to let any narcissist necessarily, be out there torturing people. I wish there was more that I could do, but I think the main issue is that I have to just understand that they won't hear me. And my rule, another rule I have for myself, is if I can't affect or change the situation in any way, I'm sorry, my chair's making noise now.
Mhm.
Then I literally just I don't deal with it. So I ask myself like two questions. If a situation is bothering me, I go, can I change the situation? And if so, what can I do? And if not, then I don't allow myself to stress about it. So I would say keep yourself away from people who are narcissists, or you might say something like, I know what you are, and walk away if you really need to. But I
Mhm.
wouldn't do much more than that. I don't think it's worth your energy. Um, I think the only thing I might do is if someone was in a new relationship with someone like that and I cared about the person, or even if I just knew that person, I might say they might be a little toxic. Watch out. you know, but that's the most I would ever do, because if they've been in the relationship more than a couple of weeks, they probably already know anyway. But what are your thoughts, Dana?
Yeah, I get it. I've been there, too, and I hate to kind of keep giving examples from my own life, but man, I can so relate to that feeling of just complete reactivity where you encounter somebody that has some similar behavior that's hurt you in the past. Well, I think let me back up. Whenever we experience, whenever we're quote unquote activated, right, like we're
Hmm.
triggered, we're experiencing an emotional response that's kind of outside the range of what would be considered normal. More often than not, there's unresolved pain that's behind that.
Mm,
And so the challenge with that is sometimes we know where our triggers are and sometimes we don't. And when we accidentally get confronted or get triggered in some way, shape, or form, it can really catch us off guard and it can be very difficult because we go into that fight or flight mode. So that logical part of our brain goes offline and now we're in the attack. And sometimes we can feel it in the moment of like, oh my gosh, what am I saying and doing? And sometimes not. So it can be difficult to kind of slow those situations down, but like Angie's saying, at the end of the day, there's, um, it's kind of the whole kind of throwing pearls to swine kind of a thing. You're not going to change them. You're not going to talk sense into them. You're just wasting your time at that point. Uh, but I get it. It's uh, really difficult to not just want to unload and give a person a piece of your mind,
oh,
especially if you weren't able to do that with this person who hurt you before.
hmm,
So um, yeah, the kind
it's
of
tough.
it is
Yeah.
tough. It is tough, and what can help with that too is by changing how you're perceiving feeling activated. So, kind of the upside to these moments where we're highly activated is, like I was mentioning before, they're pointers as to, oh, hey, there's unresolved pain here.
Mm,
So it kind of lets us know what, um, yeah, kind of what parts of us could use some healing.
yeah.
And so when you are feeling activated, or even if you can't kind of rein it back, to then go home or whenever you have some time to write about it and what was said by this person, what was so activating, and then trying to relate that to the kind of unprocessed pain that you have,
Mm,
and that helps to diffuse it.
yeah.
So
100%. Yep. I'm seeing a lot. Wait a minute. It's your turn? Did you do one yet? Did
no,
I?
well, I that was your question.
That was okay.
Well, was it?
I don't remember.
I don't
Uh,
remember. But
okay.
Jack had the same question, and so Jack, his question was, do you have any knowledge and resources on how to deal with triggers in general? He says, I have problems as such myself. And so, yeah, I think everything we just kind of talked about of
Yeah.
um, identifying them for what they are is a huge step. And then kind of knowing if there are certain triggers, um, having, if ideally you'd be able to slow it down enough to, to do some self-care. And if you need to, do something different so you're not activated activating yourself, um, doing so.
Mm, understood. Agreed. Yeah. Um, I saw something. Wait a minute, I lost it. Okay, first let me say this. I want to say really quick, and I should have said this at the beginning, but thanks to all of our awesome moderators. And if one of you would please give me a little poke afterward, I'll send you the membership thing I promised you. Um, and also that would be Jack, Jack Lumen, Hufflemom, and Bonnie. Okay. With that being said, um, this is interesting. Georgie says, I didn't see the first part. Oh, but there was, and I thought it was important. Okay. Anywho, um, Georgie says, I've seen a therapist for a few years um, with attachment issues, but no change on the desire to have or not to have a child. And I wondered about that. I wonder if that's something, the desire to have a child or not. I mean, if we, for those of us who don't have children, um, I guess I'm interested if you don't have children already, do you want children? And if you already have children, I'm not going to ask you anything right now. I don't know if that's not really a question. Um, I'm sorry. That was, I feel like I missed all of that. I missed part of that, and I'm sorry for being all woo woo about it all over the place.
That's okay. I missed what was the question? She
I can't even. I don't think I fully saw the question. I'm trying to find it right now. I thought I had it, but I lost it. Sorry,
Okay.
guys. Having a moment there.
Okay.
Anyway, it was all way above helpful mom stuff. Oh well. Okay. I can't see it. I'm really sorry. Let me just.
Okay. Okay, well, while you're looking at it, Darlene
Thank
mentioned,
you.
she says, "Dana, giving examples from your own life is one of our best tools. It helps people know we understand them and don't judge them." That's g I do find hearing their experiences of others helpful. I will say it's just awkward when you're doing a live stream and because it's, it is either just like me or Angie sharing our personal experiences. When I share a bunch, but kind of back to back, it feels kind of very like referential. And
Mm.
so, yeah, I guess just know that I'm aware of that. And I don't mean to keep redirecting the conversation to me. I'm just trying to
Oh,
give examples that help
I never even
distinguish.
thought that. I never even had thought
Really?
anything. No, of course not. I mean, I give examples about my own stuff too because that's right. That's what we do. I mean, we help them understand. Hey, we've been there. Here's an example. Did I miss something? What? Wait, roll back. What did I miss?
Yeah, yeah, no, 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 that
Okay.
I agree, I agree. Um, yeah, I guess for me, I feel like there's kind of this fine line between,
Yeah.
kind of giving examples in my own life that are helpful
Hmm.
versus turning the situation around and it's making it all about me, and that's not my goal.
I
So,
totally agree. Yeah. I
yeah.
used to never give examples that were personal. And then I think I got a little too personal a couple times. It's an art form, right? Finding the
Yeah.
balance. Um, but, just let us know if we're going too personal or getting too about ourselves because we listen. We're interested in your feelings and your thoughts. Um,
Yes.
yeah. So sometimes I'll make a version of a video that has a personal story and then I'll make another version that doesn't just
Mm,
because like over the course of a couple of months
mhm,
or whatever just because some people don't want to hear it and some people do and then
mhm.
sometimes recently I took all the personal stories that I had a bunch of them that I'd put at the beginning of a video and turned them into one video by themselves just in case anybody wanted to know the personal things.
Mhm,
So because I find that people do want to know, well, what have you experienced, have you had this experience as well, because I don't know about you, but anytime I'm looking for any kind of advice or information, I always feel better hearing it from someone who has some level of experience with that thing, right?
mhm.
Maybe.
Yeah, yeah, I
Okay.
agree. Here's a question from Carmel from Kansas who says, on dating apps, whenever I get a funny feeling, I immediately ghost. I'm scared that I'm just not giving any chances because of my own trauma.
Ooh,
How can I tell if I'm truly seeing a red flag or not?
that is a really good question. I experienced something similar to that back in the day when I was dating after my first husband. Uh, and I'll tell you something. The thing that I think the thing that for me, it's again, it was about boundaries. It was about those deal breakers and understanding what they were, but I literally probably went on 51st dates at one point because, or, first experiences, whether they were actual dates or not, um, because I was picking them apart so hard. But at that time, I didn't fully understand that what I was dealing with, to be fair. But yeah, I would find things like, oh, this one dude had lettuce in his teeth the whole time we were on the, like he took the first bite and that was it for me.
Mhm.
Lettuce in his teeth the whole time or whatever. And I would overthink everything. Well, I don't like the way this one, said goodnight, or I don't like I'm probably being a little bit funny, but really I would really pick them apart. And and then I got to this point where I thought, "Ugh, I don't even like dating. Like, I need to give somebody a chance." And so then I started to be a little bit less picky, and I started to define for myself those deal breakers. These are things I can't tolerate, live with, whatever. And if someone made me feel really uncomfortable, if someone made me feel like they were, doing me a favor, that was a big red flag, like by
Mhm.
being
That's a
with
great
me,
example.
you
Mhm.
know, anything like that, then I would just, you know, walk off. I don't actually think there's anything wrong with ghosting a person who makes you feel kind of weird. Um,
Mhm.
Intuition,
100%.
very important, right? With that being said, if you feel that you want to give someone a chance, then just start by giving the people a chance who don't make you feel weird or gross or uncomfortable or like they're doing you a favor, and publicly, go into a public place and so you're safe and see what happens. But just go in with your deal breakers in hand and know. And there are date deal breakers too, right? Like Dana, you've dated more recently than me. So what are some of your date deal breakers, if off the top of your head?
Oh gosh. Yeah, back when I was dating, um, it uh, pet names early on,
Mm,
any sign of disrespect. So, yeah, I am of the belief that if a person is interested in dating you or whatever they're interested in, that they're going to put their kind of best effort forward, right?
mm,
Their best foot forward. So if somebody's acting like you're um, on the back burner or they're getting overly comfortable with you, calling you hun, babe, that kind of stuff right out of the gate. To me, it's disrespectful. It's overly comfortable. Um, them saying, "Hey, uh, how about you come over? I'll cook you dinner."
mm,
No, like I'm not going to go to your house, and that does not make me comfortable at all. Or they want to meet right away, like meet right away in the sense of kind of like, "What are you doing now?" Like it's comfortable. They're um, it's kind of whatever works for them. It's
mm,
not the thought of, "Oh, it does this also work for you?" kind of a thing. So just little things like that that come across as disrespectful. Texting me at all hours of the night. That was another thing that guy did. It was,
mm,
he would text me in the middle of the night, that kind of stuff. And, um, just the kind of the basics of respect
mm,
is we're missing from a lot of these people. So, and here's the thing too, and this is kind of back what I was saying, I was making myself nuts for the longest time because it was sort of like, okay, well, is this a red flag? Is it them or is it me? Like who has this issue? Right? Am I being overly picky? You know, um, you know, all these things. But the reality is if somebody's behavior is not sitting well with you, you can either address it, you can
mm.
assert yourself, or you can just leave the situation depending on, where that line is for you.
Yeah.
So, if somebody were to say, um, "Hey," and the thing is, we don't even need to figure out their intentions. So that takes a lot of pressure off. So let's say, for example, you're meeting people online and somebody says, "Hey, what are you doing tonight?
Mm,
Like after work? Do you want to go meet for a drink or something?" That's going to depend on how you perceive that. For me, especially if it's a Friday night or a Saturday night when that's kind of like my prime time,
mm-hmm.
it counts more than a Wednesday night,
Sure.
right? So I would probably say no, just because I'm not gonna kind of reserve that prime time for a complete stranger. That
Makes
would be my
sense.
But yeah, I mean, it's whatever, it's kind of knowing what you're comfortable with and then holding that line with somebody.
Yeah.
But what gets concerning is that there's a lot of people that their line is so far out there. I saw the other day somebody had posted this guy had emailed her basically a list of his demands of what he expected. Like, you will, like when we go on a date, you will be wearing heels and lipstick. I do expect um, when I call, I expect you to either answer or return a phone call within 10 minutes. And it was like outrageous, right?
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff. And so then, of course, her question was, is this a problem? Are these red flags? And so it can help if you kind of catch yourself feeling stuck, regardless of the severity of the situation, to just think, how is that making you feel? If it's making you feel uncomfortable, then that's all you need to know. That's
Mhm.
enough to just say, that doesn't work for me.
Right. Yep. I
Like,
totally
we don't
agree.
need to be like, okay, well, is it this guy's culture? Is it his age? Is it this? Is it that? And try to make sense of it. It doesn't matter. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you.
Exactly, and I think
Yeah.
that's the message, really. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. You don't have to excuse it for any
Yeah.
reason if you don't want
Or
to.
try to understand it or any of
Right.
it. Yeah.
Right, 100%. And Darlene adds an interesting comment. She said, a lot of people join these sites because they are desperate, and a lot of narcissists join to look for desperate people. She says, if you aren't desperate, they will still assume you are because you're on the site. And I think I mean, I think there's a certain amount of truth to that. I don't think everyone's desperate on there, and I don't think everyone's a narcissist on there. But I look at it like you're at the bargain bin, in Macy's in the basement or something, and you're digging through, and you're looking for the one piece of real gold in the whole pile of trash, or pile of
Mhm.
like fake jewelry or whatever it is there, or the one designer piece in the stack of crap.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
so I mean, and I do understand why people do online date today because so many people do. And if you didn't, like, how are you, especially now, how would you meet people? I mean, there are plenty of
Mhm.
ways in real life, but depending on where you live, that might not be so practical. And depending on your personal situation, it might not be so practical. So I get it. But at the same time, it's a, it's a, can I say the word crap again? Crapshoot. It's a
Mhm. Mhm.
crapshoot.
Mhm.
Anyway,
Yeah.
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 So,
It really is. And but here's another one from Carmel says, I'm looking for respect at a baseline. Usually I find a lot of weird oversharing about their last traumas before we even meet, and that
mm,
sends me running.
can I say that's a red flag? And because what I've seen a lot of is, I mean, look, we all do it a little bit, or not now, but we all probably have shared information without, I don't know if information is the right word, shared our traumas prematurely in some cases. I
Mhm.
mean, I did when I was younger. But exactly if somebody, one of the biggest red flags for me with a narcissist is that they tell me their ex is crazy, or, they tell me their ex, like on the first or second date, they would tell me that their ex did all these horrible things to them, or even maybe before we met sometimes, like if it was an online, which I didn't do a lot of online dating, but if it was, you know what I mean? It would be so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And at a minimum, I think it shows that that person has a lot of unprocessed stuff to work through.
Yeah.
And it can be helpful to just kind of realize, you know what, I'm looking for a partner and not a project, and I don't want to be somebody's therapist.
Mm,
And
right.
because and that might sound really kind of cold or hurtful, but the problem is if we get somebody that is kind of looking for a warm place to land, right? Like looking for a soft place to land. You don't
Mm,
really know if they're with you or they're with you because you're a soft place to land. And so it can be you can spend all of his time and energy trying to get them repaired only for them to then leave because now they're fixed and then they realize, oh, this relationship didn't work for me at all anyhow. It was just kind of a soft place to land.
mm,
And that's what a rebound is. And so nobody wants to be a rebound. And um yeah, and they're not ready to date. Like they need to go through their own healing process. And so yeah, I would think that's a good kind of a good deal breaker
yeah.
there.
No doubt. Yep. I'm trying to see. Okay. Well, something that Miss Bryant said, and I don't know, but I think this is evidence. She was talking about, and I can't find the first part of her comment, but she said regarding someone that she had dated before, she would tell her mother about what he was doing, and she'd make comments like, "He's showing you who's boss," and kind of laugh it off. And I don't know your mother's particular psychological orientation. I don't know if
Mhm.
she's toxic or not, so I can't speak to that. But I would say that it kind of sounds like it. Either she might be a fellow codependent, or she might agree with showing someone who's boss. But I'm glad that you kind of see through that. Any thoughts on that, Dana?
What was the situation again?
She said she'd tell her mother about this person that she was dating,
Mm,
I guess, and her mother, and what he would do, and her mother would say, "He's showing you who's boss," and laugh it off, which is not a good
mm.
supportive mom thing to do. Um, but any
Yeah,
thoughts?
well, and that kind of stuff can fly under the radar for other people. That's why it's so important for us to, even if they are well-intended, uh, to be able to validate ourselves and acknowledge when something's not okay with you. Like, for example, I know it's real popular for people to go on, like, park dates with COVID, right? Because
Oh,
you can't go to restaurants, you can't go to other places, so they'll go meet at a park. Well, um, I don't know about you, but I'm for sure not gonna meet a complete stranger in a park, especially if there's nobody else around,
yeah, no.
and or when it's dark out or anything like that, and, um but it would be very easy to say something like that. Oh, well, oh, this person wants to meet at a park, and then have other people say, oh, well, yeah, it's real popular that people are doing this during COVID and
Mhm,
justifying it. And then it can be very easy to start doubting your perception of, well, is this a problem or not? Or am I making a big deal out of it?
mhm,
And again, this has nothing to do, we don't need to figure out what the other person's intentions are. It's just where your line is with what you're comfortable with. So like this situation with this gal and her mom, if somebody was um, making saying things that felt kind of off-putting, but maybe her mom wasn't picking up on it and was just kind of laughing it off of, oh, well, I guess, he's gonna just set you straight, or ha ha ha. Um, at the end of the day, like, we've got to be able to make our own decisions, and regardless of what other people think, because it's very rare where everybody else is in agreement with the decisions that you're going to make. There's always probably going to be at least one person that's going to have like some sort of issue with it. So,
mhm.
um, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This is kind of interesting. Obi-Wan goes throughout the chat and is talking about, look, I don't date online anymore. It's a bunch of crap, et cetera, et cetera, which I
Mm.
totally agree with all that. But then, but then says, now I can't find it. It's basically said, look, you can have fun with it. Just stop after, just dump them at the end of the love bombing phase. I think it was a joke, but a lot of people were like, what? So anyway, I wish I could find I'm trying to find it right now. The comment. It was pretty funny, I think. Was it was it a joke? Obi, tell me, because I don't I think it was based on all the other comments in chat. So I went back to look at all the other comments just to make sure. Anyway, but no, I don't think it's a good idea to date a narcissist and just dump him at the end of the love bombing phase, because you know uh, you might accidentally catch feelings, for one thing.
Yes,
you
that's exactly what I was thinking too. Yep.
Mhm. Yeah. And that's the same reason that I suggest waiting to become intimate uh, until date number 6 minimum. And for me, that was a matter of more than 6 weeks, because I was a single mom at the time. But I think it's really important because, again, we become emotionally attached, many of us, to people that we get involved with. So,
Hmm.
yes.
Yeah. If
Yep.
love bombing has any appeal, then, well, let me back up. I was going to say that, then that's a red flag. Um,
Oh, I found that comment. Sorry.
Okay. Like that level, understanding that that level of infatuation it just tends to be the beginning stages of most relationships and it's not real. And, um, for people that are really drawn to that love bombing, that's a problem. I think when we start getting healthier, it's the opposite perspective. It's,
Yes.
oh, I can't wait until this love bombing dies down and
Hmm.
things start being real because we know I can't get there's no emotional investment during this love bombing because it's all this over the top. Oh, we're talking all the time, we're getting along famously, we're spending, or sex is great, all of this stuff. There's connections amazing, but
Hmm.
realizing uh, this is just a stage and then it's gonna simmer down and that then the real relationship will start.
And I think that's,
So,
I mean, I think we know that even in a healthy relationship, there can be that period of infatuation, which is what I prefer to
mhm,
call it when we're not talking about a narcissist, right? But
mhm,
exactly, it's when that part is over that you know the truth about anyone in any
mhm,
relationship. But I also think it's important to recognize that someone who, is doing the love bombing thing, they will often act like you're hurting them or like you're doing something sort of against them, or they will, oh, I just really wish I could, oh, I wish you could see me, oh, I wish whatever. When you're busy, and they give you the guilt trips and things like that, and start to make you feel obligated very early, and it might not be a big deal to you because they're so sweet when you do spend time with them,
mhm,
but then when you can't or you won't, and they make you feel guilty, like, after date, early in the relationship when they don't really have the right, not that anybody should ever make you feel guilty, but,
mhm.
when they don't really even have the right to ask for your time, sort of, to demand it, it's something to watch for. I don't
It
know why I
is,
got off.
and those are all boundary pushes,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
and let me, I
Yeah.
wanna share that comment really quick before I forget
Okay.
because I wanna, okay, Obi said, "Learning the pattern of narcissism makes dating more enjoyable. Take advantage of the love bombing, but first sign of devaluation, split." Sorry, ladies, it is what it is. Again, I think it's a joke, but, that's why I brought it up. Alright. What were you gonna say? I'm sorry.
Nope, I agree. Well, here's a comment from Michelle who says, my ex overshared about deeply wounding trauma, and I thought it was out of love and shared my dark stuff. Now I'm not sure if his story was even true, and now he has ammo against me. Not again. Yes, I have learned that the hard way as well. And yeah, I think that's the important thing. Well, it's important that we set the pace and
Yes.
realizing that it's part of having functional, like healthy boundaries of not having our life be an open book.
Mhm.
People that are like, oh yeah, my life's a total open book. That's a sign of some damaged boundaries there. So the things that are near and dearest to you, that are the most vulnerable parts of you, that's a person has to kind of earn their way into your inner circle
Mm,
before
totally.
sharing that kind of information. But a lot of it's easy to kind of get caught up in oversharing, especially if somebody else is very forthcoming
Mm,
with all of their deepest, darkest stuffs. It's kind of a psychological thing where we tend to like subconsciously match the tone of the conversation. So if somebody because it feels weird otherwise, right? Like if I'm opening up, I don't know, about a horrific car accident I saw, the the other person's probably going to continue along that level of intensity and not
mhm.
switch over to what they had for lunch today.
Right, that's right.
But
Yep,
the downside is when you have a manipulative or abusive person, they're opening up, telling you all this stuff that may or may not even be true. You don't realize it. You're opening up, sharing all of your stuff with them. And the next thing you know, it's being used against you somehow.
yep.
Yeah.
And on that same note, Dana, Sue said, as a people pleaser, it can be hard to recognize these red flags. And I agree. And that's why, for me personally, because sometimes I know myself well enough to know that I fall for stuff and I feel sorry for people and I let their
Mhm.
feelings affect me and all that stuff. So I'll set rules for myself. And I'll say, like, I've talked about this before, like when I left my ex husband, I said, I'm not going to even date anybody until I'm divorced legally. That took almost a year. So I waited till,
Mhm.
the actual year mark. And then I said to myself, well, I'm going to have timelines on, when I become intimate with someone, when I decide that we can take the relation, when it's acceptable to me that we take the relationship to the next level, when, we could move in, or when, not that I expected every single person to want that from me, but
Mhm.
but I knew that at some point this would become a thing. And then I also knew myself well enough to know that if I was caught up in it, I might make wrong choices. And so I'm not saying I always made the
Mhm.
right choices, but I'm saying that having those rules in place, even today for certain situations, gives me a certain amount of strength, right? Like if I tell myself this is my rule for myself, then I'll follow through. But you know, uh, and I don't know exactly why that is, but I find if you are a people pleaser or someone who struggles with codependency or whatever you want to call it, try giving yourself rules that you must follow and tell yourself whether it's a timeline rule or it's a number of date rule or it's a, if you see a red flag, you make a rule about that. Like if I see, three red flags, three strikes, you're out, whatever. Just give yourself rules and stick to those boundaries. And if you can do those two things, it might be helpful. Any other thoughts
Mhm.
on any of that?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think a lot of it what can help too is kind of that post game day analysis.
Mm,
So taking time for reflection of, okay, how did this go? Like, did I kind of default into some of that people pleasing behavior? And if so, in what ways did I do this? And what was that about?
hmm
And it can help to realize too, making this shift of because well, let me back up. I think for many of us that have kind of this default into that people pleasing behavior, it's been a pattern. It's been how we've handled conflict and confrontation or just interactions with other people for a very, very long time. And um, and I think kind of the message we picked up early on was that this is how we have a relationship is, kind of these messages of, oh, relationships take work, meaning we need to get better at complying or keeping
Yeah.
the peace
Yep.
and don't rock the boat kind of stuff. So there's a lot of other messages that are underlying that kind of people pleasing behavior, but really realizing that a healthy relationship is an authentic relationship, and an authentic relationship is when two people are able to be themselves and real, obviously within the context of appropriate behavior, but they're able to have their own wants and needs and thoughts and feelings and opinions and all of these things and express them and feel seen and be validated.
Be
Um,
right back.
okay. And um, so kind of realizing that uh, people pleasing doesn't fit into that. So these old messages that we had about, okay, in order for a relationship to work, we need to have people pleasing behavior, shifting that to, in order for a relationship to work, it's going to require authenticity, like that ability to be open, honest,
Back.
and sincere, and to have our boundaries match that. So people pleasing doesn't contribute to a healthy relationship at all. It just um, kind of keeps things in a holding pattern. So changing how you're viewing it too
Yeah, I
is
think that's
helpful.
valid. And sorry I had to jump out. Somebody was at the door. Uh,
Okay.
anyway, yeah. Um, do you have a question for us?
Um, no.
Okay, I have two things, two comments that I want to
Okay.
share from the chat. One of them is from Bonnie, and she says, we need to trust ourselves again, which is something I failed to say at all during this session, but I totally agree. I mean, I did say trust intuition, but that's really important, trusting yourself and your own intuition. And the other thing was from Megan. I don't do dating apps, she says. I like to find love organically. There's a community for every interest out there, and it's possible to find partners that way. It worked for me. And I actually really kind of dig that, and I wanted to share it. So,
Yep.
any thoughts on that? Yeah.
Yeah, agree completely. The kind of the more organic ways where you're just out living your best life, it
hmm
takes the pressure off and because there aren't any expectations and
Yeah.
kind of, worst case scenario, you still had a fun time,
hmm
even if you're by yourself or even if you don't meet anybody or whatever, because you're
Yeah.
just there to do the thing, not
hmm
there to, meet people. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, So many really, really good questions in the chat. And I know we're running out of time. Do you have another one for us or?
I do. Yeah,
Okay.
here's one from Marcy who says,
Mhm.
"He has got me trauma bonded so bad, and it's really starting to scare me, but I've let him come home 22 times now. That's embarrassing."
Hmm. Well, first of all, don't be embarrassed because trust me, we've all done our own share of accepting unacceptable things from unacceptable people.
Mhm.
um, but I'm sorry, what was the actual question? I feel like I missed
Well,
a
I
piece
guess
of
it
it.
wasn't really so much a question, it was a
Okay.
comment of that
Okay.
he has her trauma bonded so bad,
Mm.
and it's starting to scare her, but she's let him come home 22 times, and she's just feeling embarrassed.
Okay, I get that. I don't want you to beat yourself up about it again because everyone has, so many of us have gone through similar things, maybe not 22 times, some of us, but uh, you know, it's all relative. I would say probably you didn't know the whole time what you were going through, so you can't beat yourself up for what you didn't know when you didn't know it. I would say clearly he's good at the Hoover, you know,
Mhm,
in which case, if I were you, I would say that if you are able to remove him from your home again, one of the things that I would start doing right now before you do that even is I would start writing down all the reasons you don't want him to come back, right? And do this in the depth of as often as you can, do it in the depth of your emotion. And what I mean is if you're feeling just overwhelmed and upset and angry or whatever this person makes you feel, it's right then that you should write down your emotions, write down how you feel and why you feel that way. I used to do it with a little notepad or something, or you can do it on your phone and Evernote or whatever, and save it because I like to call this hoovering insurance. Um,
mhm,
if you write it down in the grittiest possible way with all of the emotion intact, and using those emotional descriptive words so that you can re-feel it sort of if you need to. And like the next time you're sitting at home all by yourself and they're begging to come back and you're thinking, gosh, it's really peaceful around here. I don't know. Then there's your next step. Do you know what I
mhm,
mean? Like
mhm.
read that and remember it and remember how it feels. That has been my best tool for not accepting unacceptable people back into my life. Thoughts for you, Dana?
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. A lot of it's breaking that pattern. And I think another important shift for you to try to make is um, that he's not trauma bonding you, that his behavior runs hot and cold, but that you're the one. And it's more of a it's a subconscious thing. The trauma bonds are a subconscious thing, but once they're made conscious and you're aware of the push and pull and how much that pulls you in, then we're able to reclaim some of our power of, oh, okay, this is this dance that we're doing. And it's this back and forth, hot and cold, makeup, breakup kind of thing. And if I want peace in my life, uh, then I am going to have to be the one that breaks this because it's 22 times he's come back and getting clear with yourself of when is enough enough, um, and not relying on him to, um, not relying on him to kind of change the relationship or change his behavior, but realizing, okay, yeah, um, what you're feeling for this man, it's not love, that it is a trauma bond, that these intense feelings um, are there for other reasons, but it's not love. You can move past this. You had a life before him. You can absolutely have a life after him. It's kind of reminding yourself that there is a future after and a quote unquote intense relationship like this. And then, like Angie was saying, kind of preparing yourself ahead of time, shoring up your supports and in kind of keeping busy and reminding yourself of why this relationship is so toxic and why um, it needs to end. Getting clear. I had to be very clear with myself of, telling myself, Dana, there's nothing there for you. There's nothing there for you. And people ask all the time, I'm sure Angie, you see it too. They'll say, like, oh, well, how do you stop from texting this person or calling them? And what always helped me was to play it out in your mind. Like, what's going to happen? They're either not going to answer their phone, then you're going to feel awful, right? Like they're avoiding you, or they are gonna answer their phone and be mean, or and then you're gonna feel awful, or they're gonna answer their phone and be very nice to you, and you're gonna get caught back up in the cycle, and then you'll feel awful later. when it ends because there's nothing there for you.
Right.
So getting clear that all outcomes of whatever it is in this with an abusive person, they all lead to hell. Like there is no happily ever after
Right.
here.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. And this is a really insightful comment from Darlene that kind of goes along with this and also with the deal breakers thing. And but Darlene says, I kept readjusting my own rules. I always said one hit and I leave until he punched me the first time. And then it was, well, I can forgive, but next time I'm gone until the next time. And she said, I did the same thing for affairs. He had eight and I still didn't leave. When he had hit me more than twice, I reasoned it was just a couple of punches a couple times a year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's incredibly powerful. I can't tell you how many of us have probably done almost exactly that same thing, where we've said,
Mm-hmm.
okay, look, I have deal breakers, and then we tolerate just a little bit. We're like, gosh, we've been together so long. I mean, what's one hit? That's not okay. It's never okay. But I really appreciate that Darlene brought that up because I think I would bet that more of us than would be willing to admit it could relate on some level. I can. So, how about you, Dana?
Yeah. Well, and too, in situations like that, what we think um, being hit maybe looks like
Mhm,
versus how it actually goes down tend to be
mhm.
two different things.
Yeah.
So, okay, does it have to be punched in the face, or what if he shoves you?
Right, or puts his
Right?
hands on your throat or
Yeah.
her hands. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, or scratches you, or does it even need to be physical? Like, what if this person they call you a name?
mhm,
And does it have to, and does, when is it a problem? Like really getting clear on when is something a problem, because then it'll help you to know when to leave, because this stuff in things in life very rarely happen the way that we envision them to be.
right,
And I think with abuse especially, so kind of paying attention to those earlier signs of being disrespected.
mhm,
And if that stuff can't be, I think another way that can be helpful to look at it is realizing that there's no relationship present if respect isn't present. So
fair,
the relationship's always just balance.
mhm,
And if there's not respect present, it's off balance. And it's like a
right,
spinning top. Once that top gets off balance, it's off kilter and it's wobbly, 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 wobbly. There is no forward momentum, and it will eventually fall over until but it's going to have to, that balance is going to have to get corrected in order for it to stand a chance to work. Extreme dysfunctional relationships have had a wobble for so long, there hasn't been any forward momentum. There's
mm,
just this focus on kind of keeping it going, but it's just, it's all over the place. And sometimes I think seeing that, realizing, oh my gosh, no, this relationship was actually thrown into neutral in the third date when that
right,
level of disrespect kicked up, and it's been me staying around because I didn't want to be alone, or the sex was good, or whatever it was. Getting
yep,
honest with yourself.
yep,
Yeah,
I love that. I totally agree. Okay, I know we're out of time, but do you mind if we do one more?
sure, go for it. Do you have
Okay.
one, or do you want
Well,
me to?
either way, I do have one, and if we
Okay,
can't get to her, we can always do her next time. But do you have one?
no, go for it.
Okay, this is from Jenny, and I saw the question 3 times, so I want to make sure we hit it. Jenny says, "Any advice for those of us who've only dated our ex narcissist? So they've only been with the one person." She said, "Married him in 19, married him at 19, married for 23 years. I need to know what healthy dating is, but I'm not sure if I'll ever be ready." And I think that's a really it's a good question.
Mhm.
And I know, I'll tell you this much. I know that one of the coaches that I work with, Lise, who's on my team, she recently got into a new relationship. I'm probably oversharing. No, I think it's okay. Um, and she was married for a long time. And I think it was around, I don't know the number of years, but I know it was more than 10 years, I'm pretty sure. So I can say this. Um, I think Lise went through a lot of frogs before she found the prince. I think she did the same thing we advised, was to be really careful, to take your time. I think ultimately, as far as getting out there and meeting people, if there's any way that you can do that safely in real life, like through your church group or through community members, things like that, friends, whatever, great. If not, if online dating is what you have to do, you might want to consider having a system of checks and balances in place, whether you work with a coach or you work with a friend or a therapist or somebody like that, kind of just run these things by someone, someone who you know to either not be a toxic person and to not tolerate toxic people, or to be someone who has been through it and gone past it, and who could help you recognize red flags. Um, but ultimately, I would say boundaries and take it slow. Slow is the way to go when it comes to new relationships. So don't feel the need to rush in. And I'm guessing that you don't feel the need to rush in right now because you're saying, I'm not sure I'll be ready. And I would agree to take your time. And I would suggest that you do what Dana and I talked about and what somebody mentioned earlier in the chat, which is maybe just get involved with groups of people who are doing something you're interested in or that you care about, and just meet people naturally that way, platonically. And if you do happen to run into Mr. or Ms. Right, then you're I don't see which one of those that would be. It doesn't matter. What then you'll find that person and you'll know what to do slowly. Dana,
Mhm.
thoughts?
Yeah, in order for a healthy relationship to be, I like to think of it this way because a lot of these words can be very confusing. Thinking of a relationship in terms of it functional or dysfunctional. Okay, so if a relationship is functional, then it's working. If a relationship is dysfunctional, then it's not working. And in order for a relationship to work, there needs to be um, that open, honest, sincere, solutions oriented communication with both people. There needs to be an emotional a level of emotional awareness and maturity of knowing where your boundaries are
Hmm.
and when they've been crossed, so and the ability to be assertive when that happens, or the ability to walk away if
Mm,
it's egregious, or you just know, like, this is not for me and I'm done.
mm,
So, a functional relationship requires two functional enough people. It's not looking for the perfect person, but kind of these core traits are very important. That open, honest, sincere, solutions-oriented communication is,
mhm,
assertive communication, um, um, the ability to work as a team, handling frustration and anger appropriately, bringing up issues as they occur, bringing up boundary violations as they occur, because they will occur if you've got two people being themselves. I mean, it's just going to happen. People do things differently.
it's truth.
Um, so yeah, there's a lot of skills there, but kind of really getting in tune with what's nourishing for you and what's draining for you, and steering more into what's nourishing for you in the long run, I guess, nourishing in the long run. Um, that's a good path. Follow that path.
Yeah, that's
So,
important. Yep.
yeah.
And I will say this, I saw a comment from Peggy, which UNA, which is now, I can't find it because it just jumped out on me, but she was
Mm,
saying basically, you know, it's an important note because she says, if somebody tells you, look, I have these boundaries and you cannot cross them, basically she said it's okay to set boundaries for yourself, but someone using their boundaries as a way to manipulate you is still manipulation. So
mhm,
what that means is, if let's say one of my exes used to tell me, well, my ex did this to me and so I will never tolerate that. And that might have been something really simple like kissing a person on the cheek in public or whatever. But the point was, it was about controlling and manipulating me and not about
mhm.
actual boundaries. So that was a good point that I wish I could find the original text from because it was
Yes.
much better spoken.
That is a really valid point.
Yeah,
Boundaries aren't to punish another person, they're to
that's right.
protect ourselves. And
Exactly.
protect ourselves, it's protecting our time, our energy, our emotions, our physical body, you name it.
Mhm,
And yeah, it's not about controlling other people. However, I will say a lot of toxic people or deeply dysfunctional people will feel, and they might even tell you that you're trying to control them by
mhm.
having boundaries, because according to them, that's mean and fair and cruel and horribly unreasonable for
True.
you to want to have boundaries, because they expect a boundaryless relationship. And that's on them. But
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
this is where kind of that negotiation comes in, because anybody, we don't have control over how other people are going to feel. And
Mm,
sometimes we might even set a boundary where the other person um, um, is like, "Yeah, God, this does not work for me." And it could be completely reasonable boundary, but
yes.
And this is where like that level of being able to effectively communicate and negotiate comes into place. So,
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
There are so many good questions. I want to keep going and going, but I know we both have things to do.
Yeah.
Guys, I see this question from Martha. I want to answer. I see a lot of questions here from a lot of you that I want to come back and answer. So, whatever we don't get to today, we will try to get to in Dana's stream next week, and on Tuesday, a week from today, this her channel Thrive After Abuse right here on YouTube. Um, and while you're at it, make sure you check out thriveafterabuse.com, which is where Dana is on the internets,
It's where
and
I
Thrive
live.
After Abuse. Yeah, all the places,
Yeah.
You'll find her. Um, and I usually try to put her, if I remember, I try to put an end screen here. And so right around now, you'll probably see like a little Dana above her head. Just click on that. That'll take you right to her channel um, in the replay. Dana, do you have any final words for anyone at the moment? Or for the group.
No, I guess just realizing that you matter and um, to triple up on your self-care. Um, Somebody had asked in the chat if, if I kind of what had really helped me towards my healing. There were a lot of things, but probably the one thing that the most people could probably benefit from right now
Mhm.
is was a realization I had of um, the one thing that I knew for certain was that I was never going to look back on this time in my life and think, boy, I really wish I would have worried about things more
Right.
and or stressed about it or taken less care of myself. So really tripling up on your self-care, getting in tune with treat it what it feels like to just feel good, treating yourself with value and um, spending more time with those who know how to treat you with value. This isn't something that you need to earn. This is just the basic um, respect and dignity that we offer to other people, part of being
Yes.
human. So yeah.
I totally agree. Totally agree. All right, guys. Please come back and see us next week. Dana, you also do a live stream Wednesday nights, right?
Yep, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over on my channel. Again, you can sign up for text alerts, Dana Live to the number 22999 or Angie Live to the number 33222.
And
Yes.
if you want to see both, make sure you sign up to both because we will also send separate alerts when we're not streaming together. So
Mhm.
just know. Okay.
All the alerts.
All the alerts. All right. This has been a really good one. Sorry for my moment earlier when I got a little crazy. I've lost my place. But thank you guys for tolerating me and for hanging out with us today. We have had a good time. Dana, I'm going to
Yeah.
hang her up now. I will see you soon and we will talk
Sounds
even
good, my
sooner.
friend. I'll talk to you later.